Hey everyone, this is a kind of interim in between type video. Um, Here's a deck I've been playing a bit of. It's an old favorite of mine that I've basically updated to the current format. Branded Cyber Dragon, back when Branded Fusion first came out, was actually like one of my favorite decks. It had an astonishing win rate for me. It was like it must have been in the 80. Like I didn't track it, but I played like several hundred games of it. Literally several hundred games, like 300-400 or so, over the course of months, of course. And this deck, like it is a blind second deck, and it goes hard. Obviously, it doesn't look too much like it used to, minus key features, but I believe it is still a strong force in the format. Is it as good as branded Despia? No. However, it does offer alternative things that it can do that branded Despia does not. Unfortunately, at the cost of running a higher card count that you can't really do anything about, reasonably speaking. So I'll quickly go through the list. We got 3 copies of Duel and Lockbird, 2 copies of Cyber Dragon Herz, 1 copy of Despian Tragedy, 3 copies of Maxi, of course, 3 cores, 3 Fallen of Albaz. I tried playing 2, and the 3rd copy came up again, so I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm just going to play the 3rd copy from now on. 2 Alibur, the Jester of Despia, 1 Cyberdark Chimera, 1 Tri-Brigade Mercurier, 1 Springen's Kit, 2 Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous. You can cut this down to 1, although I don't recommend it. I believe 2 is more comfortable, and the difference between 48 and 49 isn't going to be a huge deal. 1 Guiding Quem the Virtuous. You can play a 2nd copy of this if you prefer. 1 original, like OG Cyber Dragon. 1 Bestial Serenair. 1 Albion the Shrouded Dragon. 1 the Bestial Lubellion. 1 copy of Power Bond, 3 copies of Cyber Emergency, 3 copies of Fusion Deployment. Keep in mind this can also spit out Cyber Dragon for you and get Chimeratech Mega Fleet Dragon and like tag out into other things as well. So this is another target for Fusion Deployment. Moving on, we have our 1 copy of Branded Fusion, of course. 1 copy of Cyberdark Realm, 1 copy of Branded Lost, 3 copies of the new Clockwork Knight, 3 copies of Super Polymerization, 2 copies of Called by the Grave, of course, 2 copies of Branded Opening, a Branded in Red, and a single copy of Branded Retribution. For the extra deck, we have Mud Dragon of the Swamp, Chimeratech Rampage Dragon, Garura, Cyber Twin Dragon, Chimeratech Fortress Dragon, Predaplant Dragostapelia, 2 copies of Albion the Branded Dragon, 1 copy of Mirror Jade, the Iceblade Dragon, 1 copy of Lubellion the Searing Dragon, 1 copy of Grand Guinal the Dusk Dragon, 1 copy of Rinbrum the Striking Dragon, 1 copy of Albion the Sanctifire Dragon. Yes, this does come up a lot. 1 copy of Chimeratech Mega Fleet Dragon, and finally 1 copy of Cyber Dragon Seeger. For changes to the extra deck, it is honestly very hard. This is a super tight extra deck. The only flex spot that I would even potentially consider is Cyber Twin Dragon, and you could run like Verte instead, right? As like your like plan B card in case things go bad. but Cyber Twin Dragon is still fairly important. Despite being such an old card, it is still powerful simply because, number one, and this is the main reason, its ability to make a second attack during each battle phase is simply an effect on the card that doesn't need to be activated. Whereas Chimera-Tech Rampage Dragon, which is generally your go-to killing tool in this deck, or at least one of your primary ones, in order to do multiple attacks with this thing, you have to activate it, send stuff, and so on. This thing just always works. Furthermore, Cyber Twin Dragon has a significantly higher attack value. Chimera-Tech Rampage Dragon, which I will just start calling Rampage. Rampage only has 2100 attack, while Twin has 28, which is naturally a very big gap. The monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Tend to have like breakpoints, I'll call them, between their like attack stats. Most boss monsters will have 2500 attack, 3000 attack. Sometimes they may have a nominal increase and it'll be like 31, 32, 3300 attack. But really, most boss monsters tend to end up in that 25 to 3000 area. Which means if you have Clockwork Knight on the board, for starters, it turns everything into machines, which is relevant for this deck. And then once everything is a machine, it proceeds to make like Twin and Rampage, like this will turn to 26, this will turn to 33, and all their stuff goes down by 500. It adds up very fast. And if you have certain setups in which you've put Seeger onto the board, this is an additional 2100 attack. Keeping in mind that these monsters attack multiple times, you're looking at an extra 5600 or not 5600, sorry, an extra 5200 attack, or even 7300 off of Rampage being 3 attacks instead of Twin's 2. And once you and the attack values soar to like very high levels. Twin buffed by Seeger is a 4900 beater. There's honestly very little in the game that can stand up to Twin at that point. And of course, if you buff, and that's not even considering Power Bond, because Power Bond can put Twin to 5600 to begin with. 5600, most monsters like don't even see the 5000 value on their stats. So what will generally happen is that you can like Power Bond into Twin, right? Or Rampage, and like this will be 4200 and it attacks 3 times. This is 5600 and it attacks twice. If you high roll even slightly and get something above average, you put Seeger on the board, you're looking at what, a 7700 Cyber Twin Dragon and a 5300 Rampage. Like the attack values that this deck, oh, and of course that's not including the extra 500, which becomes a 1000 differential just off of Clockwork Knight. So very quickly, depending on what your hand looks like, the overall like power and like the punching power of the deck is extremely high. You will get kills that you kind of like aren't expecting would otherwise be possible with, say, regular branded, or that branded would have to work a lot harder for. Beyond that, it is worth. So let's talk about some synergies in the deck that have developed over time, beyond like the base version of the deck. I won't talk too much about how Cyber Dragon works. If you're looking at this video, you probably already know how all the Cyber Dragon cards work. I don't have to tell you. Like, you know, you can like summon one of the Cyber Dragons and you can like tag out into Mega Fleet to like yoink their extra deck monster. But one thing I didn't know at first, but obviously in retrospect it is pretty obvious. It's how Clockwork Knight works. So Clockwork Knight, it turns everything into machine monsters. All face-up monsters turn into machine monsters. This is so important because this if they're not already active, I've noticed it will turn on Super Poly for you. Because while it won't work with Mud Dragon, of course, because it says different types, it will work with Garura. So like let's use Branded as an example. Many of the branded monsters have different types to them. They may all be like dark or light, but more often than not they tend to have different types to them. Like Rinbrum is a winged beast and he's dark. Mirror Jade is a worm and he's dark. Albion is a dragon and he's dark. Lubellion is a light dragon. Granguinal is a light spellcaster. So a lot of the time, I'm not going to include Sanctifire, which is a light dragon, because this can't be used as fusion materials. It's immune to Super Poly as a result. But you get the idea. There's a lot of... Oh, and like Predaplant Dragostapelia, this is a dark plant. Again, another type difference. Anyway, so very quickly, against quite a few decks, what happens is this will turn on Garura for you. Branded's probably the best example because almost all of their extra deck monsters will have different types and attribute alignments, and they don't share too much in common. But yeah. So that is, and this I've played the game I've played the deck in the game for a bit over the past couple of days. I uploaded a replay of a particularly long game. Most games with this deck are very short because this is a blind second deck, which is a strength of the deck. But yeah. Other than that, it's kind of just doing both Cyber Dragon and Branded shenanigans. Some hands can be utterly ballistic in terms of power level. And thankfully, if you're forced to go first, as in you lost the coin flip and they made you go first anyway, which is rare, but it happens. The branded cards really give you a lot to do. And something I want to bring up while I'm talking about it, Albion the Sanctifire Dragon's Reborn effect. It does 2 cards, right? And you can reborn 2 things. I have found that if I put Herz onto their side of the board, I've done it in 3 games. Obviously, this is a very small sample size, but I've done this in 3 games. 3 for 3, they activate his effect every time, which reads, if this card is special summoned, you can make this card's level become 5 until the end of this turn. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn of this turn except machine monsters. So in the act of not paying attention, they just see the thing pop up, and obviously they're not reading it right, because they would realize they're about to shoot themselves in the foot. But this is just like, it's come up, and every time I do Sanctifire, because this deck does, obviously I don't run Gimmick Puppet, so this deck doesn't really have super great like things to pitch to their field. Herz is the best target because when it comes back to your graveyard, it'll do its effect again for you. So yeah, I have, which is why I did it and why I discovered this in the first place. But people just click this. When you summon this to their board, they just click it. They don't care. They just click it. So unlike typical like branded deck profiles, I'm actually going to show some very specific lines. Obviously, I'm not going to show you like all the branded lines and all the stuff and all the things you can do, but rather the concept behind them, so you can understand like two of the main ways to kill people with this deck. So I'm gonna jump cut, gonna go to solo mode, hit the retry button probably like 5 times until I get the hand I want to show, because it's for an example, you know. So yeah, be right back. Alright, I'm back. In this game, I just let the AI take its first turn, and hopefully it thankfully set a card so I can show this off as well. So in this, I'm going to go for the branded Fusion one card, quote unquote, one card OTK line. So for this, you need any way that the deck can access branded Fusion, basically. And if you can produce branded Fusion, you can produce over 8,000 worth of attack and then swing for game. So let's go for that. We'll branded opening, right? Get rid of Herz. We're gonna summon Aliber. Aliber effect. Herz chain block. What cards you discard obviously doesn't matter, but Herz alongside like Synergies is the best discard in the deck. Cyber Dragon to hand. And I get branded Fusion. Then, of course, activate branded Fusion. And then I'm going to go for Albion the Branded Dragon. Now, obviously, I just did Herz. But I'm going to send it anyway because this is generally what you're going to do because you want his effect to trigger. So I'm going to send Herz and Albaz for the sake of example. Albion the Branded Dragon. Cool. Now, normally you're going to see Herz here too. And then you would chain link one Albion the Branded Dragon. And obviously I don't have it because I just did the effect, but you would then chain link to Herz. I actually kind of regret doing that. I would have just discarded like a Cyber Emergency for the example instead or something. Do kind of regret doing that, so I can't show the chain properly. But basically it will be chain link to Herz. And then you're going to make Chimeratech Rampage Dragon. So you know what? I'm gonna swing it back. I'm gonna swing it back so I can show the appropriate chain resolution because this is supposed to be a guide. So I'm gonna jump. You're gonna see a jump cut, and I'm gonna go to the point in the video in which I have this chain link to. Okay, hey, I'm back. Hey, all I did was I let them take their turn, and I normal summoned Aliber. Okay, so branded Fusion, Albion, Herz, Albaz. Attack mode. Albion 1. Herz 2. Herz pull Cyber Dragon to hand. Albion is going to make either Chimeratech Rampage or Cyber Twin depending on their board. I'll say like 9 times out of 10 at least, or even 19 times out of 20, you're going to make Chimeratech Rampage Dragon because this blows up back row when it's summoned. It is worth mentioning that we can make Cyber Twin Dragon because Herz inside the graveyard becomes Cyber Dragon, as you can see with the yellow text over its name that's now been changed. But we're going to go for Rampage. We use both of these guys as material. And there's Rampage. Rampage's effect will trigger. I get to blow up their back row, which is going to be just some random card. Yeah, whatever. And then we kind of just activate his effect, right? We're going to pitch two guys. And then here, so we have, obviously I'm going to run over this thing, but let's look at what we have. We currently have, in terms of just raw stats, we have 6,400 worth of attack value on the board. And Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon is going to attack 3 times, so that's actually an extra 4,200. And I happen to have Clockwork Knight in my hand, right? So I can go like this. And like it's an even bigger difference now. But, so let's go to battle. And like this is just super well over lethal. Turn that off. Easy. You know, there it is. So super easy, over 8,000 damage with even with no buffs, no nothing, because Albion is 2,500 attack and Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon is 6,300, which brings you a total of 8,800 with just one card. And obviously various things in the deck enhance this, add more power. Attacking with more things, and you know, so on and so on and so on. So that's the synergy between Branded and Cyber Dragon and why the decks work so well together, because if you have a way to get to Branded Fusion, you also then have a way to get to your winning kill combo that isn't the standard Cyber Dragon line, which I'll show in just a second. Which I'll proceed to jump cut to and then perform that. Okay, so we're back. So for this combo, what you need is any way to access Cyber Dragon core, whether it is core itself or Cyber Emergency. So we're going to start by activating Cyber Emergency. We're going to get core. We're then going to normal summon core, which will immediately activate its own effect. We're going to grab the one of realm in the deck. And then we're going to activate it. It will then ask us to search a card. Only target in the deck is Cyber Dark Chimera. We will then activate it again to perform the normal summon for Chimera. Then we will activate Chimera, discarding, it could be either, but of course Branded Retribution is a way better discard. And then that will search the one of Power Bond in our deck. I have Clockwork Knight, so I'll show this off. Clockwork Knight, special summon, Fortress. Can I not? Yeah. There we go. Oh, yeah, sure. Power Bond. Rampage. Blow that up. Oh, whoops, I clicked this by accident. I don't need realm anymore, oh well. If you do accidentally click that, you can destroy Realm and not care about it very much. And then we'll activate Dragon. And obviously this is just a mountain of attack and I'm just going to kill them. And anybody who plays Cyber Dragon regularly knows this combo very well, but I'm going over it for the sake of the video. Now I'm going to show one more thing, which is the more, I'd say, standard way this would look in a game. So I'll jump cut to that as well. Alright, I'm back. I'm just going to use core here, of course. The only thing you missed was that I needed a spell trap, and I was like, let me try and rig this real quick and see if I just draw one off the top. So I did Albion. Completely not necessary for this. This is just core going for OTK. So core, obviously don't grab emergency, you want realm. Realm to hand, realm to field. Yes, I would love to. Chimera. Something to note that this is a normal summon, so this, if you're under maxi, this doesn't count. Chimera effect. Branded in red discard, could be any spell trap, keep in mind. I'm going to link summon Seeger, which I messed up in the previous video, but oh well. Or not video, clip, I should say, of this video. Now to quickly go over how this works, because I kind of glossed over it. This is Chimera's effect. When you do his effect to get Power Bond to your hand, it allows you to use your graveyard for fusion material by banishing the stuff inside. So, Power Bond. I'll get Rampage. And I'm going to, because Seeger counts as Cyber Dragon, and is of course a Cyber Dragon monster in the case of like Twin and Rampage. So I'm going to send that plus core, and I'm going to pretend like this card doesn't exist and just ignore it. Not that I would use it for this anyway. In a real game, I would actually pitch that I would just use the Herz and keep Seeger on field, so I can make this like way bigger. But again, for the sake of the example, I'm playing as if Herz isn't in my hand, right? Rampage effect. I'm gonna blow up both these back row. Cool. Doesn't really matter which ones you send, but I'll send the one with a graveyard effect, of course. Cyber Dragon to hand is a free card. Why not? Won't matter. They're about to die. Battle phase. And then you just swing for game, of course. Cool. This of course, has an extra attack, so it's another 4,200 I could swing with in case they have like monsters in the way or whatever. But yeah. So those are your like standard, you know, you can do this. Now let's look at what a replay of this deck may look like, and we'll just quickly go over it. I'm sure I have one I can dig up quickly. Let me go review. Alright, so here we are in a game I actually just played, because the replays I had were either a bit too long or whatever. I don't think they'd serve as like a good example. This is a game just played, like I said. I was made to go first. So let's see how it plays out. I have a pretty mixed hand here that I believe shows off the synergies of the two strategies between both Branded and Cyber Dragon, how they can play off of one another. I was actually pretty happy with how this duel turned out and thought it was a good display of the deck in action. So let's start. So I'm going to start with a normal summon Quem. Quem send Cartesia. Let me fast forward Branded Fusion, get Lubellion. Naturally, I'm going to discard Herz because Herz doesn't care if it's sent for cost. Then I'm going to get this Cartesia to isolate the rest of my combo from targeting Herz effect, get Cyber Dragon for free. Albion, putting everything in defense mode just to protect against, because I did not use Branded Opening, I'm going to put my stuff in defense mode to protect against like Lightning Storm and things of that nature, things that mess with attack position monsters in general, with Quem being the outlier, of course, because she was normal summoned. So like let's just quickly go over what board I've now presented my opponent. I have 3 monsters, all of which are fairly terrifying, let's be real. Quem is Quem. She can summon Albaz or Cartesia or what have you on a whim. Mirror Jade is live because I haven't activated his effect. And Sanctifire can also resurrect Albaz or Cartesia again on a whim. And I have Herz and Tragedy hanging out. I also got Cyber Dragon to hand for free, which is nice because this is basically just totally free discard fodder for Albaz. Cyber Dragon in scenarios like this will probably never matter for anything other than being like fusion material or discard fodder or things of that nature. So this can be discarded pretty freely because we fuse using the graveyard all the time in this deck. So moving on. They are going to set a card and then immediately special summon Kashtira Unicorn. Naturally, I'm going to respond to that before they can get any cards with this thing. With Mirror Jade, I'm going to try and banish this. I'm also then seeing that they're on Kashtira. And it's not just Fenrir. I'm going to target or Sanctifire, right? And I'm going to Herz Cartesia, and I will throw Herz onto their board and Cartesia onto mine. Herz, Cartesia, and what did I say? What did I say? What did I say? Everyone will click the button. Everyone will click the button. 4 for 4. They all do it. They all do it. I've not had someone not do it yet. They see that this thing has an effect. They don't read. He clicked that. He clicked it instantly. Instantly. Didn't read a word. They're like, oh, Herz does something? Cool. I want whatever that effect is. Click. So they have activated Herz. And because things have happened, Cartesia occurs because I did the Mirror Jade, right? And then here they reveal they have both Bestial Druid's Worm and Super Poly. So I believe they allow... So I do think this was a blunder on their part, and I'll go over it quickly. They should have fizzled Sanctifier by banishing my Cartesia to prevent this whole interaction from occurring, to stop this whole thing, right? But instead, they're kind of working double time here because I believe they wanted to get this Super Poly off. And we'll see what they go for here. And they discard a cool-looking Royal Trivikarma. And then they send away Herz and Cartesia, and they're going to make Mud Dragon here. Right? Cool. And then Druid's Worm is summoned, and then the chain fully resolves. Herz has triggered. It may have left the field. It may have left the field, but that effect is still active. That effect is still active. They're gonna get Scream. They're gonna play Scream. They're gonna Supreme Sea Mare, and obviously, they scoop the replays very fast. But I'll just show you what they did there. They summoned Sea Mare, and they sent Havness. And you know what happened? They realized they're machine locked. Havness can't trigger. They're like, "Where's Havness?" And in the duel, they sat there for a solid 20, 30 seconds. I sat here I was like, "Oh, they're learning. They're learning." And then they realized that their turn's dead. They can't do anything. And like, "All right, I'm done. Bye." So yes, always, if you can use Sanctifier to put Hertz on their board, it locks them for the whole turn, and they always click it. They always click it, and it's funny every time. I promise. It's funny every time. I promise. Alright, and we're back with the deck after that really fast game. Obviously, I cannot display the versatility and the overall power and all of the synergies for this deck in just one duel. I would, to accurately depict all of the things that this deck can do, I would need probably like a dozen different curated replays in which I have like different opening hands. I will say straight away, I like this deck. I've always liked this deck, and it is fun. If you like the Cyber Dragon cards and you want to play them, this is probably one of the best ways you can play the Cyber Dragon cards in the game, if not the best way. I would venture to say, because the branded engine is so powerful, and they synergize well. Back when branded Fusion first came out, I remember taking this deck to ladder, playing it all the time. I loved it. I love this deck. This was when Diamond rank first came out. Short story. When Diamond rank first came out in Master Duel, because it originally was just Platinum, right? I loaded up this deck, and I rocketed straight to Diamond 1. I think I lost like 2 games, period. And I was just blind seconding people. Obviously, that replay I showed you was a case in which I was made to go first. Obviously, they have quite a few blind second cards, like the Kashtira Unicorn, and what have you, right? Like they have and Super Poly and all these blind second cards they have access to in that deck. So naturally, they're a blind second deck as well. But another thing I want to bring up is the stigma of what the opponent is, quote unquote, probably thinking when you win the coin flip and you make them go first. There are very, very, very few decks in the format that are noteworthy that will make the opponent go first. When you do so, there are 2 decks that are going to come to people's minds when you make them go first. Both of which are just like blind second OTK decks, which this deck is as well, or at least it certainly does function as one. But like I said, what they will expect is Makonko is a big one. The Makonko cards, right? Makonko. So like these cards, they will have the opponent... Wow, I have a lot of Makanko cards. They will have the opponent go like, oh, I'm not going to end on any monsters so that they can't interact with me. And then another one is Numeron. Everybody knows this deck, right? And because everybody, back when Master Duel first came out, and it's played to this day, right? Where Numeron makes you go first, and then they'll do like Lava Golem, right? Or any of the Kaijus, right? In attack mode, and then they'll swing at you with the 4 guys here, and then kill you in 1 turn after they use like Numeron Network and pop off. So when you have the opponent go first, it really makes them approach the game differently, I found. At least more often than not, to the point that I feel it worth bringing up and talking about. But all that aside, I really like the deck. I do. I don't know if this is the optimal build for it, but at the same time, I don't know what I would change. You need the 3 copies of core. You want 2 Herz. You need the 1 copy of Cyber Dragon for one of the main combos. Like, you need the 1 Power Bond. Clockwork Knight's too good to remove. Super Poly's probably one of the best cards in the game right now. And aside from that, I'm running like the standard branded suite. I could remove the Bestials plus Lost, but at the same time, they're too strong for me to want to remove them. I'd rather, like, what would I do? I go down to 46 cards and I lose like one of the main branded lines that you can do with like Albion. With Branded Fusion, send Albion. Like, let's say you're going first, send Albion, and then like you put Lubellion and Albaz as the materials, right? And now and then Lubellion plays Branded Lost for you from your deck, and now you have this card advantage engine that also makes things harder to interact with at times. Like, that's for 3 cards. I'll just keep it in the deck. And like, I can't cut Saronir. Now that Branded Fusion is at 1, Saronir plus Albion or Quem or what have you, pitching Branded Retribution and Branded Fusion. That's one of the ways you can see Branded Fusion. And then once you see Branded Fusion, you can make Albion, and then Albion via Herz and Albaz. Albion Chainlink 1, Herz Chainlink 2, Cyber Dragon to hand. You make Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon or Cyber Twin Dragon, depending on which one's better in the scenario. Generally, it's Rampage, of course, but Twin is good for when you're not feeling greedy. And then you swing for game. And to talk about the Rampage versus Twin scenario, the scenario in which I will make Twin over Rampage, because I thought about it for a bit, and I was like, when do I want to make Twin? I would generally make Twin in scenarios in which Rampage has no targets to pop for spells and traps, which is rare because most decks will put at least 1 spell or trap on the field that you want to pop, and this forces them into an untimely, unoptimal activation, or they go, "Ah, damn, there goes my combat trick," and their quick spell or trap gets popped. And then it makes swinging for game all the easier. Looking at other cards, Branded in red. I mean, you could cut Branded in red, but at the same time, I don't want to. Because it presents just a good way of... for starters, it's a great Albion set for when you're going first, as usual, because half the time you've already spent your Branded Retribution. So you can like probably like branded in red, get a Despia or Albaz, and then fuse into something. Such as, you know, all of the Albaz fusions, namely. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention, it almost never comes up. Cyber Twin Dragon's a level 8 level 8 fusion monster. Rampage is only 5. I don't know why. I guess its stats are low. But Chimeratech Rampage Dragon is only a level 5, but Cyber Twin Dragon's a level 8 fusion. And that comes up sometimes. Yet another incidental synergy. Anyway, so that's the deck as a whole. Like I said, I do really enjoy the deck. I believe I mentioned at the start of the video, yes, standard branded Despia is better than this deck. It will branded Despia in a standard build will win you more games on average, assuming you're playing both decks quote unquote correctly. However, this deck is fun. When I first started playing Master Duel, again, mini story, Cyber Dragon was actually the first deck I built. Just straight Cyber Dragon. It was like 2 weeks after the game came out. I was slightly late to the bandwagon. But I like Cyber Dragon. And I think if you like Cyber Dragon, you will like this deck. You will. It's punchy, it's good, it's consistent, and it wins games. This deck can easily get to Master 1. No problem. So, all that being said, if you have the cards and you like Cyber Dragon, which may be probably why you looked up this video, go ahead and give it a try. It is a very fun deck, and I like playing it. There are so many cool, funny moments just in general that make the deck just a joy to play. Everybody who knows all the Cyber Dragon tricks know that like you can do like normal summon core, and they have like a link monster, right? And like you do core's effect, and then before you commit anything else, you contact fuse away into Mega Fleet, and then they lose their like really big link monster because nothing really defends against this except not being able to use his fusion material, which is rare. Yeah, this is I like this deck. I think it's a fun time, and if you have the cards and want to, I mean, it's not even hard to like, because you've already, I mean, to build branded, you need to buy 3 copies of Fusion Deployment, which is the Cyber Dark Structure deck. So you have these cards. You do. The only craft you need to make is Rampage, or rather, the only craft of note is Seeger, and Rampage is just an SR, so who cares? And Mega Fleet, you don't need it, but it is good. You want the card, but even then, I would consider this optional. It's just too good not to run, is all. Kind of like how Verte is in Branded. Like, do you need Verte to play Branded? No, as this deck shows. Should you? Yes. That's where Mega Fleet is. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and do all that good shit.